Johnson is urging China and other neutral countries to join global condemnation of Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Well, the UK Defence Ministry says Russia has failed to gain control of Ukrainian airspace following claims that Moscow deployed hypersonic missiles.
So joining us now is Sean Bell, retired Air Vice Marshal, who's a member of the consultancy Universal Defence and Security Solutions. Good morning. Thank you ever so much for joining us, Sean. What is the significance of this particular new military arsenal that basically has been used overnight?
Yes, I mean, we've always got to be careful what we pick up on the news, but there's been a lot of talk about this hypersonic missile. I think Putin's sort of raiding the larder a bit at the moment. The danger of, I mean, most missiles and artillery can be tracked and shot down, but there is a process of detecting them, then tracking them, identifying them, targeting them, and then firing at them. And most of artillery and missiles fly about 0.5 kilometre a second, which sounds fast. But when you're talking about hypersonics, they're a lot more difficult to detect, track and identify. Therefore, they're a lot more difficult to shoot down. But the reality is nobody's quite sure just how accurate they are. And also, they're fearsomely expensive. They are one of the things that it's pretty evidently Putin doesn't have many of. So this does look rather a statement rather than an escalation in the use of particular bits of ordnance.
It does raise concerns, though, doesn't it? Because as we hear time and time again from people on the ground, there's all this call to close our skies. Now, whether that's from aircraft, and certainly Russia doesn't seem to have air superiority at the moment, but there's this constant call for NATO to step in and close the airspace over Ukraine. Does something like, I mean, I know it's not on the cards right now, but does this make it more or less of an option if we sort of look at a month or two in the future?
Well, I think the closing of the skies, the no-fly zone, is very topical. And I mean, there's three clear reasons which NATO persistently says, and I think stands true now, one of which is that would create war. NATO would have to take out the radars, the missiles that are based in Russia, be killing Russian soldiers on Russian ground, and that would escalate. Second is that, as we're seeing, just because the Russians are not using the airspace much, it hasn't affected their use of artillery and ground ordnance, the guns, etc., to continue to advance their cause. And thirdly, so far, NATO has trodden a very fine line to keep itself out of this conflict directly. And I think that probably, if one of Putin's objectives undoubtedly is to try and drag NATO in, because then he will be able to play that back to a domestic audience as good versus bad, East versus West. So I think NATO's done a really good job, and we've got to be really careful to ensure that.